Hey everyone, and welcome back to the ATD Movie Channel. I'm Tony, and today I'll be reviewing Avengers Endgame, the culmination of 11 years and 22 films in the MCU. Let's jump right into it. So there is so much to talk about in this review, and I want to promise you from now that this is going to be a spoiler-free review. I'll jump back into my channel and I'll do another video where we talk full-on spoilers. But again, for today, it's going to be spoiler-free. And as I do with every review, I want to tell you a little bit about what I liked about the film, what I didn't like about the film, and then give you a conclusion. And the thing that I want to start with that I liked about the film is so obvious, and it's the reason we watch these movies. It's the characters. 11 years ago, we were introduced to Tony Stark in the cave, and that was in 2008, and here we are in 2019. We love these characters. I love these characters, all of them, from Tony Stark and his initial film that started the whole thing, and then Steve Rogers, the first Avenger, and Natasha, and Thor, and all these great characters that make up this universe that was really just a fantasy when we were growing up. To be able to see them on the big screen and to have it be a reality is really, really special. And every character has something to do in this movie. And what I really liked about this film is even the lesser known characters get their moment to shine. Newer characters, sort of like Ant-Man, they get their time to shine. And even supporting characters like Nebula, those kinds of characters that are lesser characters, they're great, and the MCU does a good job of highlighting all of them. Another aspect of the film that I really liked was the story. I'm not going to spoil anything here, so don't worry. The story fits within the world of the Avengers. It makes sense. It just includes enough of each of the Avengers so that we feel satisfied. We don't feel like it's a Tony Stark film. We don't feel like it's a Captain America film. It's really nicely parceled out to each of the heroes. And for the most part, it's really easy to follow. There's a lot of moving parts. There's a lot going on. In the spoiler review, I'll talk about it in more detail. But it's pretty easy to follow for the most part. And I know these reviews are really difficult when you don't talk spoiler points and plot points. I just don't talk about the plot in general in my reviews, but this is very difficult to talk about without spoiling anything. So I'll stop talking now in regards to the story. Another aspect of the film that I really liked was the visual effects, and it's almost something that we take for granted in these Marvel films. Because we come to expect it. And it's the CGI in this movie is spectacular. They spared no expense. And it could be something as simple as a CGI character just talking, or the obvious big battle action sequences with a ton of special effects and CGI. The textures, the colors, the contrasting colors between costumes and characters. It's a really brilliant film when it comes to visual effects, and I really hope it gets recognized during awards season. I mean, everything from spaceships down to the hand-to-hand combat look incredible. There's not one piece of film or one frame that I didn't love. And then I think these are the unsung heroes in not only this film, but in filmmaking in general, is the technical aspects of this movie. You know, it's easy to fall in love with the characters and tell a good story, but there's the technical aspects that go unnoticed, like the editing. It's, easy to follow the action on the screen relative to the editing. The score, it's incredible, this score, and it's from the same composer that did Infinity War before it, but it helps elevate the emotion, and this is a much more emotionally impactful film. You'll hear me talk about it a couple times today. The camera work, again, even whether it's a conversation between characters or a big budget action sequence with battles, the camera is filling in for the audience. We're peering into this world through the camera, and I just think that the Russo brothers and their team just did a spectacular job. I also want to just take 2 seconds to talk about production design, costumes, character design. Every technical aspect of this movie was impressive. Every single one of them. And these are just a few of the things I wanted to point out. Another piece of the film that I really enjoyed was the way that it closes out the Infinity Saga. And what felt special to me individually was that the more the fan is invested in the MCU, the more they're going to get out of this movie. I think fan service is often used as a bad word, and it doesn't need to be. It's going to make you proud to be a part of the MCU experience if you've seen all the movies before you come into this. And I'm going to be honest with you guys, I had tears in my eyes. I mean, just pure joy, happiness of what I was watching. I'm getting emotional right now talking to you guys about it. Just The pure joy that this film gave me watching it is something that's gonna stick for a long time. And in relation to closing out the Infinity Saga, I feel like the various story arcs were closed out in a fitting and fulfilling way. The 3 hour runtime really doesn't feel like 3 hours. It just doesn't. And I mentioned earlier, but the emotional weight of the climax was earned. They earned every bit of it. They didn't cheat. They didn't cut corners. They earned the emotional impact of this film with not just the build up to the climax, but with all 22 films in the entire MCU. Again, no spoilers here. But I want to tell you that I was in a sold out theater where you could hear literally grown people weeping in the stands. And that, to me, proves that the Russo brothers have tapped into the audience emotional core and really given us an experience that's going to last for a long, long time. So I'm going to be honest, I didn't dislike pretty much anything. Yes, there are parts that are slow. So if I talk about this next tidbit, it is not a dislike. I just want to address some of the things that I'm reading and seeing online in reaction to the film. The first act is quote unquote slow and boring. No, emphatically no, absolutely not. We, both the audience and the characters, we need a minute to breathe. Half of existence is gone at the end of Infinity War. The world as we know it has changed. We need a minute to breathe and allow for all of us to collectively process what's going on. That doesn't mean to me that it's slow and boring. That to me means it's realistic. If half the world is gone tomorrow, we're going to need a minute to process what's going on before we collect each other together and go figure out a way to fight back. The second and the third act, though, are rip-roaring fast. The action hits one sequence after the other, and I think that people who are complaining about the pacing really just don't get maybe what the Russo brothers were attempting to do. That's in my opinion. People are also complaining that there's a few characters that are so different from how we know them. Yes. So what? They just experienced what we would all consider a life-changing experience. No one's going to be the same, ever. And so it's just interesting to read some of the hate that people are spewing towards the movie. I felt like the character building stuff was really good. And I can't explain it here without spoiling anything, but I want to make another video specifically to talk about the character building and the way that these characters handle the events of the previous film. And usually I do a conclusion, and I want to change it a little bit. I want to do some comparisons to Infinity War because it's inevitable. It's going to happen. People are going to compare the two films. Infinity War I know I'm going to get pushback. It may be a better film, but that first film had the liberty to do whatever it wanted. It could do anything, and then they could tie it into a nice bow with this second movie. This second film, to me, felt structurally constrained to what the ending needed to be. And I know I'm being vague, but I'm being vague on purpose. But structurally, plot-wise, and pacing, I think the first film works a little bit better. Endgame, to me, is emotionally much more gripping. And I know I said it before, but it earned every single one of its emotional moments with the audience, me and everyone else in my packed theater. Endgame, you guys, is a film for the ages, one that is going to stay with me for a really long time. It's a movie that will make as many headlines for what happened behind the camera as it does for the story that it told in front of the camera. 11 years, 22 films, a connected universe of films is something my brother and I dreamed about when we were young kids growing up in Chico. And how fitting that my brother and I got to experience this movie together 30 years later. It's a film that's going to stay with me for a long, long time. And I have the Russo brothers, Kevin Feige, Marvel, the cast and the crew of all these wonderful movies to thank for that memory and that experience last night. If it isn't obvious enough, I highly recommend you check out Endgame. And if you're able to, go back a second time and a third time to fully understand and appreciate the magnitude of what you just saw. So, have you seen Avengers Endgame? And have you seen all 22 films in the MCU? Let me know in the comments below. If you liked the review, give me a thumbs up. And if you're interested in future reviews, including a spoiler-filled review of Endgame, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching my review for Avengers Endgame. I'll talk to you soon.